Hi, I'm Kat, product manager at Syntasso. We've created Cratix, the open source platform framework. I'm going to talk to you today about something that will hopefully mean you don't make the same mistakes I have. Skills and tools needed to work in brownfield environments is something I've learned over my years working on legacy software and systems. And moving to platform engineering has shown me that there's a lot in common, and those skills and tools work really nicely when embarking on your platform journey. I'd like to start with a little story about one of my first times working on building a platform from scratch. I was part of a consulting team brought into a neobank looking to scale up. They had a DevOps team that was struggling to scale the necessary governance and security checks across teams. And as the DevOps needs of the business grew, they couldn't hire people fast enough to meet those new demands. So they were excited about platforms as a way of meeting those needs without having to double or triple the size of the team. So we started mapping the processes to what we'd like to build, thinking we could start with a lightweight MVP, a little bit of observability, deploy one service, have a few governance checks. But we dug a little and realized that one, there was no capacity to do anything new in the team, and two, each of the development teams were doing something slightly different and refused to change what they were doing. Some teams used some obscure load balancing features that no one else was and wouldn't move to a new platform without them. Another had super admin permissions to all their databases and were using them daily, so we couldn't get rid of them. We ended up spending 3 months trying to release capacity in our DevOps teams by automating the existing systems and processes before even tackling any platform building, at which point we realized we needed to rethink a little bit. We weren't dealing with building something new. It took 3 months for us to realize that even though they didn't have a platform or a platform team, they did have existing ways of doing the things a platform was going to do. We also realized that if we continued what we were doing, we would have been this slightly repurposed XKCD comic. We learned a lot about each of the teams and that each of them were doing things slightly differently. If you're interested, reach out and I can tell you plenty of stories of where I was in this exact situation, where we were hoping we'd create this universal platform for everybody, and we just added another thing for us to support in the long run. Each of your teams will have a different way of doing things and their own processes and needs. If you're in a large or mega large tech organization, you probably have multiple teams or departments that already exist and are trying to help developers get their code into production safely and maintainably. Trying to build one shiny new platform as a brand new greenfield product adds confusion and mess. So, what's the alternative? Brownfield development describes problem spaces needing the development and deployment of new software systems in the immediate presence of existing legacy software applications and systems. I've worked with legacy software in brownfield environments for pretty much my whole career. The term was borrowed from civil engineering, where brownfield developments require you to work with or around existing structures, environments, and hazards. And I think we can all guess which one of those the people who borrowed the term were thinking about in the software context. At the scale up, we reached a critical mass of services and necessary business capabilities that needed to be supported by someone, but they were unique to the neobank, so we couldn't just buy another platform off the shelf. This was an org that was in scaling mode, but to reach that point, like most other startups, they had to get their product into the hands of customers fast. And once you start putting products out there, you can't take them back. So those initial processes and implementations needed to be supported or migrated to the new platform, which is where working around existing structures, environments, and hazards becomes important. Another way of thinking about this is that platforms are emergent. They emerge from a need to scale, a need for consistency in a complex environment. And what they emerge from is stuff that already exists. Developers are already deploying code onto environments that already exist and are being maintained somewhere. They're already finding and fixing errors in production. They're configuring and managing accounts, services, and data. That's exactly why you need to build a platform, because those things are happening today. And because platforms are brownfield and emergent, the way we think about MVPs need to change. The common diagram about how you build an MVP is you think about a car. You have a skateboard that becomes a scooter, that becomes a bike, and finally you get a car, which is awesome. And in an MVP world, here's the road you're testing it on. It's beautiful. There's no traffic, mostly pothole free. Riding a scooter or a pushback down this is totally feasible. However, when you're dealing with platforms, your world looks a bit like this. It's not you on a clear road with a skateboard. You're in an overloaded banger of a car with 3 kids screaming in the back in the middle lane of traffic, travelling at 70 miles an hour, trying to get from London to Edinburgh by 6 p.m, desperately hoping your old beat-up saloon car doesn't break down on the way. Here, a skateboard isn't viable. So this metaphor and most of the ideas in this talk come from the amazing Megan Waters. I read her blog during my project at the Neoblank, and it was like a cartoon light bulb lit up above my head. While she talks about legacy replacement here, I found these ideas are equally relevant to building platforms. So back to why MVPs don't work in this context. One of the main reasons is loss aversion. In the late 1970s, Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman published their paper on prospect theory, and one of the ideas in the paper is loss aversion. One study showed that when offered 2 options, either A, a 99% chance of winning $1,400 and a 1% chance of winning nothing, or B, a guaranteed $900, most people chose option B. Obviously, this differs depending on the person, but this bias towards guaranteed and avoidance of loss is something significant. Kahneman goes into more details about this in his award-winning book, Thinking Fast and Slow. It's a bit of a dense read, but it's definitely worth checking out. Now, what's interesting in the context of platform building is to the extent to which we feel the loss of pain against positive gains. In his book, Kahneman says, you can measure the extent of your aversion to losses by asking yourself a question. What is the smallest gain that I need to balance out an equal chance of losing $100? For many people, the answer is about $200, twice as much as a loss. The loss aversion ratio has been estimated in several experiments and is usually in the range of 1.5 to 2.5. This is an average, of course. Some people are much more loss averse than others. For us as platform builders, that means even if people don't really use or even like a feature, they feel the pain of giving it up more than any potential gain they get on the new platform. Thinking about MVPs, why a bike may do everything your users need, and it might have benefits like it's environmentally friendly or get you exercise, the users don't want to give up their heated seats in the car that they never turn on. So instead, we can focus on jobs to be done. The jobs to be done theory is an approach to innovation based on the premise that customers buy products and services to get a job done. No one wants a 1/4-inch drill bit, they want a 1/4-inch hole. Looking at the business through this lens helps companies streamline the innovation process by uncovering the true purpose of a product or service. And in our platform, that means understanding all the steps needed for one of our platform users to get their job done. The Job to be Done framework was created by Tony Ulwick in the 90s and popularized after a Harvard Business School published a book called The Innovator's Solution in the noughties, which was based on his framework. Ulwick has since published a totally free ebook, follow that QR code, that talks about turning the theory into practice. Warning, it's actually very comprehensive and covers a lot of things in details that may or may not be relevant to your platform. But what we need to know here is that we want to build the first platform slice in a way that allows a user to complete one job from beginning to end. That means that all the capabilities they need to do one thing in its entirety, all the configuration, integration, checks, and rules. So you're still creating a smaller chunk of work than building the whole platform, and you're still thinking end to end, but it's a tiny slice of pie rather than a smaller complete pie. One consequence is they'll likely need to use all of the tools they had before to do all their other jobs, but realistically speaking, they probably would have done that anyway. Hand in hand with the loss aversion principle is the endowment effect. Have you ever asked an iPhone user if they would use an Android? That's the endowment effect. And more than just brand loyalty, the endowment effect is the tendency for people to perceive that something has more valuable that they have than similar ones that they don't have. In this case, the iPhone is more valuable than the Android phone because they already have an iPhone, but also they are just better than Android. For your platform, that means your users will see what they have already built as more valuable than your new platform, even if that isn't the case in reality. To get around this effect, platform users need to see the platform as something they own. Then you aren't competing against their existing solution because they can feel ownership of both the old and the new ways of getting their job done. There are plenty of ways you can do this, but if you provide a way of contributing to the new platform, then you can promote this ownership really, really quickly. This could be via a forum or user feedback exercises, all the way through to giving them active ways to contribute code or resources to your platform. And last but not least, don't forget about it. A very common habit I've seen with greenfield software is the notion that you can figure out support later. And this can be the right approach when you're looking after a small subset of users that won't be trusting you with the most important crown in their kingdom. But in a brownfield world, given you're building a platform, building with live systems and processes, you need to be supportable for the long term. This is more so with internal platforms. You're being trusted to get their software and system into production in the hands of users. That means you need to be properly supported, not just throwing more people at a problem, but your platform has to be able to scale exponentially. And this is where fleet management can come in. Fleet management is a term that comes from the automotive industry. Think about where you might need to manage a lot of vehicles, rental cars, logistics lorries. Like with vehicles, in a platform, you want to be able to treat all of your services as one unit, upgrading them seamlessly and automatically, restoring services as a group, not individually, and decommissioning safely, knowing exactly where each resource is and who it's being used by. The SRE phrase that's key here is treat resources like cattle and not pigs. So to summarize, don't build your MVP in a greenfield way. Remember, people are already careening on that highway. Think about jobs to be done instead and give them a thin but complete solution to achieve something they will need to do. Next, avoid the endowment effect by building a sense of ownership in the new platform. Let them give feedback, contribute, and be involved from the very beginning. And finally, remember that the platform needs to be successful, but also supportable in the long time, side by side with the existing solutions. Make that easy on yourself by treating your platform resources like a fleet. Thanks for listening. If you've got any questions or feedback, please reach out to me. My email and LinkedIn details are below. Try to be super responsive. If you'd like to try out Cratix, our platform framework, which supports all the things I'm talking about here, visit cratix.io and get in touch for a demo or just for a little chat about platforms. Thanks very much.